So once again, welcome to Live from My Drum Room, and it is a great pleasure and a great honor to welcome my guest. And I know I say these guys are friends, but this guy, he's one of my oldest and dearest friends, and I'm so honored to welcome the great and the very handsome, still at age 60, Sonny Emory, or as Sonny, as I used to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen.
Yeah, don't slack on me now, buddy. Give it. I need the radio voice. And it's sexty. I just turned 60, not 60.
Sexty.
Yeah.
If anybody can call it sexty, it's you, my brother. It's you.
Oh no, dude. I'm just grateful to be alive, dude. Grateful to be, still walking the earth and able to play drums every now and then. It get, that's it. Have some fun.
Yeah. Yep. Me too. I know. I'm a couple years ahead of you in the sexty age group, but me too, man. I like you. Just I think a lot of it has to do with, and I know this about you. We take care of yourself when you're younger, so that when you're older, you can
Yeah,
still go out there
exactly.
and do what we do. Yeah.
Right. Right. You look great, man. You look the
Oh,
same. You look the
thanks,
same you
buddy.
always have.
You do too.
Thanks, man. It's funny. It's just, you try to stay in shape. I mean, especially playing the drums, you got to. And if you put on top of that traveling, then it's a must because you just can't, you get older, you're just not gonna be able to do it,
Yeah.
unless you take care of it.
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
I remember us out on the road together on the clinic tours. We went running a couple of times, and I was telling Kelly about this. I think this was in Northern California, Mill Valley. We went running one morning, and
Mhm.
you were basically sprinting. I was like, seriously, trying to keep up. And you're like, yeah, I like to. I'm like, Sonny, what are you doing? You're like, I like to run fast.
Well, I like to run fast because I like to run short.
Yeah,
I like to
yeah,
get it. You know what I mean? Let's just get
yeah.
it. So, and you know what? I got that from a guy that I used to train with when I was in college at Georgia State. His name was Larry, and he was a grad assistant. And Larry, man, was up every morning at like 4:30 a.m. running, you know. And he did me the same way. He's like, yo, you need to come and, you need to get, I always been athletic all my life. I played football in school and, baseball and stuff. But the running thing, when I got to college, I kind of slacked off of it for a little while, but he got me back into it. But
Yeah.
when he ran, he ran. It wasn't, he wasn't jogging.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. No, and I do remember. Yeah, we probably ran maybe a couple 3 miles or something. It wasn't a long
Yeah,
run, but it was. Yeah, but I mean,
intense.
it was a workout, intense.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
thank you for being here again, Sonny. Thanks for making time to do this today, and
Oh
it's
man,
great
it's
to
such
see
an
you,
honor,
buddy.
man. Well, it's you, man. Come on, baby.
Uh,
It's you, buddy. It's an
thank you.
honor, dude. I was happy to hear from you, and happy to reconnect. It's been a minute since I talked to you. I think the last time I saw you was at a NAMM show a few
It
years ago,
was.
right?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I think I was with my son because I'm going to look for it. There's a picture of the three of us, you and me and John
Right.
Jr., who's now, not such a young man anymore, but
Yeah.
he's still a young man. Well, he could be
Yeah.
watching. He's a young man still.
He's gonna get you.
Yeah, he's bigger
Yeah,
than me.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Cool,
man.
man. Well,
Well, we got a
good.
lot of folks watching, Sonny, and I'm gonna throw a couple questions at you just right away, if that's cool.
Yeah.
From Anthony Cusina, who tunes in all the time. Anthony, thanks for watching as always.
Thanks,
And he's
Nat.
asking, yeah, yeah, and he's asking, Sonny, what's your routine to stay in shape? Great question.
Ooh. Well, first of all, I think I mean I'm still lifting, Anthony. I'm not lifting as heavy as I used to when I was younger, obviously, because I don't need the type of stamina that I needed when I was with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Um, that was a pretty intense show, 2.5 to 3 hours of just full out intensity. So I needed a lot of stamina, a lot of strength. So I was training pretty heavy lifting back then, but I've been practicing yoga now for last 25 years, 30 years.
Great.
And so that's a mainstay in my workout. I'm still running quite a bit, and I'm doing quite a bit of swimming and bicycling and biking, you know what I mean? And on those days when I'm not working out, man, I'm sitting behind the drums. I mean, the drums are an excellent, you know, vehicle way to stay in shape too, you know. So that's, I mean, basically that's all I'm doing, man. I'm watching what I put in my body as far as food. Just trying to make sure, I mean, you know, I'm not by any means a snob, or I'm not a vegetarian. I love steaks. I love a great hamburger every now and then, you know, love pasta. I'm not cutting any carbs. Because I mean, you know, you need that energy and sustenance when you're working out, you know. And I mean, even though I'm not lifting as heavy as I used to, I'm still working out hard when I do it. You know what I mean? It's like and when I'm in the gym, it's a good hard hour of going for it, you know.
Yeah.
And then the yoga is the yin yang thing. It balances out the lifting, and it keeps me stretched out for playing, which to me is the most important thing at this point in my career. Is like, I want to stay flexible, healthy, and just and as fluid as I can around the drum. So basically, I mean, that's the crux of my workout routine. And I just alternate the days, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to rest, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was such a fanatic about doing it when I was touring with Earth, Wind and Fire, and had that really intense schedule, that when I got out of that intense type of schedule, or that type of show, I was still kind of working out as if I needed to play that show, but then I needed to start building in more rest days. So I started doing that, and I actually started feeling better, because you're taxing the body really hard, but then you give the body a chance to recover. So that's pretty much it.
That's great, man. That's great information. And are you still, you know, do you pretty much play every day still, Sonny? Like in some way or shape, are you doing something on the drums or with the sticks and the practice pad? Or
Yeah, I try to, man. It depends on how intense the schedule has been for me at this point. It's like I think it's really beneficial to get away from the instrument sometimes.
mm-hmm.
You know, because as musicians, I mean, you know, especially and drummers, I mean, most musicians who are really, really serious about the craft and developing and maintaining a certain level, you're doing it. You want to do it all the time. You want to do it, want to do it because you love it. But I find, for me, I get fresh new ideas if I don't attack the drum set every single day. You know, especially if I'm working, like I've been doing a lot of production work now, producing. I got a band that I'm producing, my new thing that I'm producing, and other people that I'm producing as well. If I'm in the studio, say 10 hours a day producing, I'm not going to go and sit behind the drums to practice. You know, I'm not going to do it, you know. But I find that when I do go back, you know, like if I take 2 or 3 days off, when I go back, I feel good. You know, after I've warmed up, I feel good about playing. You know, I feel good about attacking some fresh new concepts that I'm working on or whatever. So, you know, I will keep a pad upstairs. You know, my studio is at, you know, in my home in the basement, and that's where I do all of my work. But I will keep a pad upstairs. And sometimes if I'm just in front of the TV and I just want to, you know, get the hands going, I'll just practice silently on a pad, you know. But at this point in my career, I just don't feel like it's necessary to just sit behind the drums every single day.
Yeah, and I wondered that, because I mean, I got to think at this point in your life, the muscle memory of all that gives you that ability, like you say, to mentally sort of check out from it for a couple of days, especially with all the other stuff you're doing that is so taxing mentally. You know, producing is like, that's a whole other level of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing too, for me too, is sometimes I just like to practice mentally. I just like to put the headphones on, listen to a tune or whatever, and exercise that listening muscle. You know what I mean? so that
Yeah.
I'm able
Yeah.
to, I go, okay, dissect. And then I'll hear a passage sometimes in a song and I'll go, okay, let me see if I can just actually, how quickly I can transcribe what's going on here right quick. Let me see, okay, eighth note. And then I'm doing it mentally, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to
Yeah.
exercise that, you know. So when I'm in those situations in the studio, if I have to make changes really quickly, I can jot some notes down and be fairly accurate, you know. But that doesn't necessarily entail me sitting behind the drum set to do it, you know. I can
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
you know, lying across the bed with some headphones on. You know.
Yeah. Man, that's great. That's great information. I gotta give you a couple of quick comments for some people I think you might know. Michael White.
Okay.
Michael
Oh,
White. Yeah. Our buddy.
quite.
Yeah. Sonny the
What's up?
Great. I miss it. He says, I miss our shed sessions from back in the day. And your old percussionist partner from Earth, Wind, and Fire, David Romero.
Daoud.
Yeah. Says, what up, Johnny and Sonny? So, yeah, got a lot of
What
friends
up,
watching.
Daoud? What up,
Yeah.
Mike? I love you guys, man. Miss you, man. Both of those guys, man, are so talented, man. Great musicians in their own right. Mike was we've been friends a long time. Mike and I were friends, but prior to me moving to LA, and was really instrumental in you know, kind of showing me around and
Yeah.
introducing me to a lot of folks when I got to LA. And we just been really good friends, man. You know, besides the drumming thing, I mean, you know, we have that. And then Daoud and I obviously spent some really beautiful years creating music, but you know, on the Earth, Wind, and Fire thing, man. So I love you guys, man. Hope you guys are
Oh,
well.
beautiful. Yeah, man. I tell you, I've saw you guys a bunch of times, and yeah, David's a bad dude, and
He's
you,
a
of
beast.
course,
They're both
yeah,
beasts.
and Michael White,
You know?
yeah, yeah. I gotta say, so I'm glad you mentioned, because I wanted to kind of jump backwards to L.A. And the first time I met you, it was a brief introduction from our friend Rick Drum.
Mhm.
Was 1986, Pro Drum Shop in Hollywood.
Mm,
You're doing a
mhm.
drum clinic with a guy named Terry Bozzio. And
Yeah, Terry.
yeah, and this was like a huge deal because Terry had never done like a drum clinic before. So
Mhm.
I was living in LA at the time. I think I might have just started working for DW. Anyway, I go down to see Terry, and I hear there's a guy playing with him named Sonny Emory, and it's sponsored by Remo and Peisty. You guys are both with
Right.
Remo and Peisty. You
Mhm.
come out, and I know there are probably people watching this right now that were there, and if Terry were watching, I know he'd forgive me for saying this, but you blew the roof off the place. I mean, it was unbelievable, like the way, man. And and Terry even
Thanks,
came
man.
out. Do you remember that? Terry came out and he went like, I don't even know what to do. I
Well,
love
dude,
Terry.
I was caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, it's like you know, come on, man. You got me. I'm opening for the great Terry Bozzio. I mean, come on. Can you put a heavier anvil block on my back than that? I mean, you know, so I really felt like I needed to step to the plate. You know, I had
Man,
fun, man. I mean, you know, Terry and I mean, you know, we forged a great friendship on that tour. You
yeah,
know, and I mean, I thank Remo Belly and Rick Drum for giving me the opportunity to do that in the first place. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, that was yeah, it was kind of like one of my introductions to LA. You know, one of the first times I actually played in LA. I think you know what I mean.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, you know, you know, after having been, you know, a student and listening to Terry and all the stuff, all the work he did with Zappa and missing persons and all that stuff, man. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you need to go out here and you got to go out here and play, son. You know.
man.
So,
Well, play you did,
yeah.
and so were you still living in Atlanta at that time? Had you not yet moved to LA?
No,
You
I
remember?
just moved to LA.
You had just moved
Yeah,
to LA. Okay.
I just
Yeah.
moved to LA. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like literally, like within like weeks, I just gotten there,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I was working with Joe Sample at the time too, with the Crusaders. And
Oh, okay. Yep.
that's what actually brought me to LA. and Ndugu, rest his soul, who
Oh man, yeah.
great player, great mentor of mine. Love him. Was very instrumental in me getting connected with Joe, because they were here in Atlanta, and actually Joe got a chance to hear me, and Dugu kind of made that introduction, So it was all
Yeah.
kind of all interconnected, and then so yeah, but that particular clinic was the beginning of a clinic tour that Terry and I did for Remo.
Right.
And that was funny. And I have a funny story, man. It's like Terry would get on the plane every morning. We flew everywhere, right? So Terry would get on the plane every morning, like 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Black hat, long black coat. Yeah, I mean, stealthed all the way out, right? Everybody, he'd been on the plane looking like the Hamburglar, and people were going, it was a fun every morning, man. It was just, he would just get all these stares, and people just look at him and be like, who in the hell is this? And I just crack up, but we had a lot of fun,
That was to me, that was the beginning, because I feel like, I say the beginning, you were like in the scene from that point on. I remember not long after that, I know I was working at DW the next time I saw you at that clinic. Rick Drum kind of gave us a quick introduction, and he said, right. John, I want you to meet my friend Sonny Emory, to meet Sonny, and I was just like, but then you were playing with Paula Abdul for a while after that, and you came up to DW, and I think you picked up a pedal, and you were kind of using, before like the Yamaha thing happened, I think you were using some DW pedals, and
right, exactly.
We kind of hung there for a minute, and then you got the Earth, Wind and Fire gig, and then that was like, you just
that
soared.
Was the one that just kind of, it kind of just blew the roof off of it, because prior to that I was doing Sanborn too. I was bouncing, and I was doing a lot of dates with Lee Ritenour. Lee was very instrumental in kind of like helping me maintain the visibility, playing with him a lot. But then I got the hit with Earth Wind, which was kind of funny, because I always thought Ricky Lawson would be the one that got that call, because he was so hot then. He was the go-to guy,
Yeah.
And, but I mean, little did I know, well, I'd already done some work with Philip Bailey back here before I moved to LA. Philip kind of was already familiar with my playing. And then Maurice, I met Maurice once I got there. And after I got the gig with Earth, Wind and Fire, I found out that Joe Sample and Maurice were really good friends. And Joe had been telling Maurice about me as well. So, it's just synergy, man. It's just the universe. It's God bringing it all together.
That's great, man. Well, you answered my next question, how that came about. Was it like an audition situation? Was it, or like, had they seen you? But it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, rumors had it that, I was hearing it. Everybody was hearing it. I mean, Maurice was in the studio. They were recording Touch the World. And at the time I was actually working with David Sanborn. I was in David's band. And I was actually on the road, and like I said, I've been hearing it out and hearing it. Earth, Wind and Fire was getting back together. Maurice was working again. Then I started to hear these rumors that Ricky Lawson was probably going to be on drums, and Nathan East was going to be playing bass. And I was like, really? Not Verdine? No Verdine? So then the Nathan East thing went away. I started hearing, Verdine's back. I was like, okay, cool. Ricky's probably still going to be the guy, right? So I'm on tour with Sanborn, and we're out, and I call home back to LA to get my messages. This is when, you had the answering machine, you had to physically check it, So I called home, and my roommate at the time, Sam Sims, great bass player, answered the phone. He was like, yo, dude, hey man, Philip Bailey just called here looking for you, man. He's just called, and we used to mess with each other all the time, because we used to kid each other. We used to go, yo, Quincy called you today, and we go, shut up, leave me alone. So that's what I said to him when he said, that's That's what I said to him when he said Philip Bailey called. I was like, all right, Sam, give me my messages, leave me alone, stop bothering me. He was like, no, dude, really. Then he proceeds to read this number off, 818, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, wow, are you kidding me? He's like, no, dude, I'm telling you, Philip just called. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I called Philip, and I, he answered the phone. I was like, Philip, this is Sonny Emory, man. How you doing? Good to, to talk to you again. Because hence I'd worked with him before, met him before, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, hey, man, I just got off the phone with Maurice, and we were wondering if you'd like to join Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh,
and I was like, whoa, what? But at the time, I still had like maybe like 3 or 4 weeks left on this Sanborn tour, right? So I'm in the hotel. So I told Philip my situation. I said, I'm on the road with Sanborn right now, man. I'm not gonna be able to I can't. They wanted to start rehearsing, and the Sanborn schedule conflicted with their rehearsal schedule.
Yeah.
And I've always been taught to honor your commitments, and that's the first thing I tell all my students, and I'll tell anybody that to this day. Please just honor your commitments. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, stick it out, get the job done. Okay. Yeah. And so I said, okay, I can't bail on David right now. We're in the middle of a tour. I can't do it. So he was like, I understand. He said, I'm going to call you back. Let me call Maurice. I'll call you back in a minute. So I hung up the phone. I'm in a hotel room somewhere in the Midwest. I get on my knees. I'm like praying, oh Lord, please let this work out. Please let it work out. So he calls me back and he goes, hey man, I just talked to Maurice. We're going to push rehearsals back a couple of weeks so you can do it. I was like, yeah.
Wow. Oh,
so that's
man.
So that's how it happened. And there never was like a formal audition. I mean, we got together. I mean, the next call was for Maurice, and he was like, hey man, nice to meet you. I want to, see when we can kind of get together. I met him over at Larrabee. We sat down and talked in the studio while he was working on the record for a minute. And then the next thing he said to me was, look, let's get together at the Complex, bring Verdine in. And at that time, Vance Taylor was playing keys and the rhythm section, basically, that he was trying to put together. And we went over to the Complex setup and just kind of started playing through some grooves. And Maurice was like, yeah, this is going to be cool. And that was it. And then the next time we got together was actually official rehearsals with everybody,
Is the Complex cool. Is that the place I saw you in Santa Monica and like in a hangar? Or is that's where you guys?
That was an actual airplane hangar doing production rehearsals in Santa Monica at that hangar. Yeah, because remember, we had this stage and lights and everything was up when you came, So.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
that's right.
Full
because
production.
that I just signed with you guys, and I was trying a bunch of stuff out in rehearsals.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you introduced me to the guys in the band, which was just like mind blowing. Like Verdine comes walking over, just like the nicest, most friendly guy, and I'm like, I didn't want to you learn when you do what I used to do, like just don't go talking to these guys unless they want to. I mean, not that I, you know what I mean. Just, but they were all such nice.
Out.
They were all so cool, and you were so cool.
I was the same way. A funny story though. I was when I went to go meet Maurice at Larrabee at the studio. I had Sam, my roommate, with me. I was like, "Come on, man." Because he's been a long time Earth, Wind & Fire fan, because he's an excellent bassist. He grew up, we kind of grew up on the same music, right? So I was like, come on, come go with me. You get a chance. Maurice, he won't mind, So we walk into the studio and I said, hey, Reese, how you doing, man? Blah, blah, blah. And Sam, I said, Maurice, this is Sam Sims, my roommate. And Maurice said, hey, man, how you doing? And Sam was like, he said nothing. I was like, speak. He was shell-shocked.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
He was stunned. I was like, I kid him about that to this day. I was like, dude, you were like so starstruck. You were like out of character starstruck.
Yeah. He probably had this whole thing in his head, like what he was going to say. He probably like rehearsed it in his mind. And then he just, what I mean? Like deer in the headlights, like.
Yeah. But all of a sudden you're standing in front of Maurice White. It's like, wow.
Yeah. You introduced me to Maurice. You introduced me to Ralph, Verdine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it was like, it was heavy. It was heavy for me. And I grew up listening to Earth, Wind and Fire. And I'm like, man, this is like, I was, in fact, when you invited me to the rehearsal, I was like over the top with that. Cause that was, you said, well, man, you're in LA. Why don't you come? We're rehearsing. And, you know, I'm checking some stuff out. I'm like, oh, that would be
yeah,
great. And it was
yeah,
so
yeah.
cool.
And
Yeah.
while we're on the Earth, Wind and Fire thing, man, I just want to say R.I.P. to Freddie White, man, who was a total
Yeah.
inspiration to me growing up, listening to him on those tracks, man.
Yeah.
And for all you younger cats out there who are not familiar with, Freddie White, go and listen to a lot of the earlier Earth, Wind and Fire stuff, man. This cat set the template for me and everybody else who's playing that type of music. Um, you know, so, I hate that we lost him,
Yeah.
but yeah, so but he's a great legendary player as well, man. And he was a Zildjian guy.
He was left-handed too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Zildjian
the
and
guy that
Yamaha.
plays this. Yeah. And Zildjian and Yamaha.
That's a
Yeah. And
great Gretsch kit you got sitting back there, man. That's killer.
you're like, hey, I know some people there, you know?
Uh-oh. Well, I hear they're close to Atlanta too.
They're not far.
Check it out.
Hey, man, there's so many people watching, so many great comments, but I got to read one from our very good friend, Yard Gavilovich, the legendary
Yeah,
drum tech. Yard says
yeah.
hello to you, and he's
Man,
watching. So,
yeah, Yard, I love you, man. I'm glad that you're doing well. I miss you. Uh, I don't know if you guys don't know who Yard is. Yard is a legendary drum tech with Steve Gadd. And when I first got on with Clapton, Steve and I were doing some of the gigs together. I was doing
yeah.
some, Steve would do some, and then we'd do together. But I got a chance to hang with Yard, man, and really bond with him. I love you, man. Miss you. Hopefully I'll
Oh,
see you soon.
yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and right, love for me too, Yard. And also, he's been like Clapton's. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Yard, if you're still watching this, but I think he basically, whoever is in the drum seat at the time with Clapton, Yard has the gig as the
Okay.
drum tech.
Hmm.
And I know like Steve Jordan's been there,
Right,
and yourself and Steve Gadd, and
right.
I think some. Well, I don't know how far back, but Yard's been the guy with all the
Yeah.
all the greats.
Yard's
So
the man.
he's
He's
the
the
man.
cat, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I had a great time to just, be able to stand and talk with him and spend some time with him and learn something, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we did the not only, I mean, we did some dates, but we also did the Ginger Baker tribute where Gad and I were on that together.
That's right.
And yeah, and so we really got a chance to kind of bond, man. He's one of the best, man. Yard, you're the best.
Absolutely.
You're the best, dude. Love you, man.
I forgot about the Ginger tribute because he was Ginger's guy
Right.
on the Cream tours. So,
Yeah.
man, well, there's tons of Earth, Wind, and Fire questions and comments here, and but while we're talking about Eric Clapton, maybe you could just talk about how that came about, like you playing with Clapton these last
Yeah, it
few
was
years.
I mean, I met Eric when I was actually playing with David Sanborn once again back in, this was like 87, 88. I was in New York rehearsing with David to go out on tour, and David comes to me in the middle of the session and goes, "Hey man, I'm doing a session tonight. I want you to do the session." I was like, "All right, cool, I'm there." He gives me the address. So I walk, later that night, I walk into the studio, and lo and behold, sitting on the couch is Eric Clapton playing guitar. And I was like, wow, that's Eric. So long story short, we ended up doing that night, we were tracking tracks for the Lethal Weapon 2 soundtrack.
Right.
It was
Okay.
myself, Tommy on bass. Michael Kamen was the composer.
Hmm.
So the four of us were in the studio: David Sanborn, Eric Clapton, me, and Tom, working on these tracks. And so that was my first meeting. That's when I met Eric that night. And then we had a great session. It was cool. And after that, I didn't see him for a long time. Didn't talk to him for a long time. And then Nathan actually brought Eric to an Earth, Wind and Fire show.
Oh,
And he got
wow.
a chance to hear me. Yeah, he got a chance to hear me with Earth, Wind and Fire. And he actually, Nathan brought him backstage to meet everybody. So I got a chance to meet him. And so I met him again, and he remembered that I was the guy that, you know, that did the Lethal Weapon 2 soundtrack. And then after that, the next time I saw Eric he was a featured guest. I was in Bruce Hornsby's band now. There's a few when Jay Leno was doing the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
We did a song on the show, and it just so happens it was one of the songs that I co-wrote with Bruce. And Eric sat in with us on the song. And after that hit that night, Eric came up to me saying, "Man, I really enjoyed playing with you, blah, 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 blah." And I didn't think anything else of it. So fast forward maybe like another 2-3 years, I get a call from Bruce Hornsby. I'm in Bruce's band. Now Bruce calls me and goes, "Hey, yo, man, Eric Clapton he just called me, he's looking for you." You know? And I go, "Wow, okay, all right." But no, let me go back. I missed a little piece that's kind of important. I did a project called Rock Hard Cache. So after we did the Jay Leno show, I got into this project, and a friend of mine who works at the Hard Rock Cafe, I had all the tracks cut, and I was lamenting to her. I was like, you know what? I really wish I could find somebody with some star power who would, you know, be gracious enough. I just don't have any budget, you know, because I did this project in 2008 when everything crashed, you know, everybody was home. Yeah. Remember that?
I do. Yeah.
So I was like, I don't have any budget, you know, I'm just kind of paying for this out of my pocket and getting the tracks done. So I had everything done, and I had this one track, and I needed a guitar solo on it. And I said, you know, I really wish I could find somebody, you know, that has some star power that could, you know, that would do this for me. And she just point blank looked at me and said, "Call Eric Clapton." I was like, "What? Call Eric Clapton? I can't just pick up the phone and call Eric like that." I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So some kind of way she got his email address. And I emailed Eric, and I just, you know, I just reintroduced myself, said who I was, and kind of tried to help him remember, you know, who I was. And within like 10 minutes or so, he answered me right back. He said, "Sure, I'd love to play on it."
Oh, man.
And I sent him the tracks. He played on it, killed it, obviously, you know what I mean? So then I get the call like maybe a year later from Bruce that Eric is looking for me. And then I, you know, that's how it happened. And so I called him back, and then I said, "Hey, man, Eric, this is Sonny, man. How are you?" He's like, "Yeah, I got a few dates. Want to know if you'd be interested in doing them." Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
so this was funny too. So I said yes, and everything was kind of in motion with Eric, right? And then the reality of what I was about to step into hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, "Oh, wait a minute. Gadd has been on this gig. I'm coming in behind him. These are some huge shoes to fill." And I got super nervous. I did. I got super nervous because I was just like, wow, that's, you know, that's pretty heavy. So I had to just kind of collect myself and go, okay, you know what? You know, I can just do what I do.
Yep.
And that's all I can do, you know, just do what I do and then see what happens, you know. And that's what I did. And then Eric and I have bonded, and, you know, it's been really cool, you know.
That's great. And, you know, I got to think, Sonny, you worked with him in 87 and then worked with him again. You know, he saw you with Earth, Wind and Fire. So he called you because he knew what he was getting and calling you. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, stating the obvious here. So, but I know what you're saying. You still, you know, Steve is Steve and Big Shoes and all that. But
I mean, Eric has played. I mean, he could have any drummer in the world that he wanted. You know what I mean? It's like he played with the greats, man. It's like, you know, so I didn't want to be the cat to let him down, you know?
Yeah.
So it was just a humbling experience, you know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, you pray for these situations to come around, but then when they come around, you have to assess, okay, am I really ready for this? Am I ready for this?
Yeah.
You know, and but I mean, I feel really comfortable. Been doing it for 6 years now, and had a chance to actually do a gig, another dream come true, do a entire tour side by side with Steve.
Yeah.
That was just, I mean, man, it doesn't get any better for me, because growing up, he was one of my icons. He still is one of my drum heroes. You know what I mean? It's like, so to be able to like sit next to him every night and play with him, it's like, yeah, it's great.
And I know he dug it too. And that's the great thing about you and him. Like, you guys are both so generous as players and as people. And it's the common goal is like making it feel really great.
Right.
Obviously making Eric, fulfilling and serving the music.
Right. Exactly.
And that's, I like, again, stating the obvious, but that comes with the maturity of somebody like yourself and Steve, that like, you put all the other kind of bullshit aside and just,
exactly.
Yeah, it's just making great music.
Yeah, we did. We had a conversation at the beginning, and we both recognized that we were here to serve the music, man, and that's exactly what we did. We crafted parts for both of us. There were times when, we both knew when to stay at home, and we both knew when to explore, but the goal was to always, let's make this thing feel as good as we can and to create as much space as we can. And then, like, the thing that brought it home for me was Sam Sims, once again, my best friend, great bassist, came to see us in Atlanta. And he was like, dude, he said, I'm not lying to you. He said, it sounded like one guy.
Wow.
I was like, mission accomplished. That's what we're going for. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And then Eric came to me at the end of the tour, because at the beginning of the tour, he was like, well, yeah, we're gonna, when he called me to ask me, he asked me if I was cool with playing with Steve. And I was like, yeah, of course. I got no problems with that. Yeah, let's do it. So we did it. So at the end of the tour, he comes back to the drum riser, he leans back and goes, looks like the experiment worked.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. So
man.
I was just great. I mean, really, really honored, man, to be able to play with Steve and to hang with him. He is, man. He's a jewel.
He sure is. Yeah. What a warm human. And yourself as well. And going back to the beginning of that story, Sonny, I think it's such a great lesson for everybody watching, whether they're young drummers or drummers that have been around a long time. But you're such a pro, and we were talking about this before, and all the time I've known you, like we've traveled together on clinic tours, and I can't think of just any other word than just like a total pro from the get-go. And I think this is a great example of it, like how you handled yourself the first time you met Eric Clapton, 1987. You came in, did the job, did the session, and made an impression. Then he saw you, you know what I mean? All these things led up to him calling Bruce Hornsby, whose band you're in at the time, going, hey, can you get a message to Sonny?
Yeah, right.
That's the best part.
Yeah, exactly. It really does pay off. And to all the younger cats that are listening who are trying to, like, in this day and age, craft and build a career, I mean, professionalism is all you need. It just be professional. Just do what you're hired to do. A lot of guys get caught up in trying to make the gig their gig. It's not your gig. So do what the person hired you to do. You know what I mean? And I've always my instructor at Georgia State was a stickler for that. When I was in college, man, he was such a pro, such a stickler for being on time, having the proper gear, knowing the music, being prepared. I mean, there are no excuses for not being prepared for anything, So I was just kind of like, it was ingrained in me, And here's the other thing. it's an honor and a privilege to be able to sit and play music every night. You know, not everybody gets an opportunity to do that, especially on an international level, professional level, you know. So treat it with respect, treat the opportunity with respect, and just continue to, like, you know, build upon, you know, every professional setting that you're in, you know.
That's, man, that's the best takeaway of all, I think, really, what you just said.
Yeah,
It's, yeah, not ever, like you say, never taking that for granted, and
yeah,
knowing that, you know, it's such a blessing and an honor to be able to do what you've been able to do all these years, and continue to do. It's
yeah,
so great.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that, I mean, you know, that a lot of times, man, the playing is important, but the other parts that cats miss sometimes are the ones that take them out of the equation. You know, your attitude, and I mean, are you pleasant to be around? I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know, we've been saying it for years. I mean, it's the same old thing, man. If you know, you got to be a nice cat. People have to want to be around you in order to work with you long term. You know,
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
close and in person like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You go out on the tour bus, you know, months
Yeah.
at a time, and if
Yeah.
you're not fun to, if you don't make people feel comfortable to be around you,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're not gonna,
Yeah, you're not gonna last.
you're not
You're
gonna
just
last.
just not gonna last. You know what I mean? So, you know, you need to work on, as well as working on the musical thing. Just make sure that personally, I mean, you're a nice cat. You know what I mean? Just be pleasant to be around. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, you know, I'm going to jump back. I wanted to ask you this question about Earth, Wind, and Fire,
Okay.
and we talked about the great Freddie White, rest his soul.
Hmm.
Did you have a lot of freedom, Sonny, to kind of to take those? I mean, he played such, you know, classic, made such great parts for those songs.
Right.
Did you have the freedom to kind of put your own spin on them, and kind of,
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, I tell people all the time, Earth, Wind, and Fire is just a band composed of drummers. Maurice was a
yeah,
drummer. Philip plays drums. Ralph plays drums. I mean, Verdine. I mean, you know, he's rhythm section player. I mean, so conceptually, Maurice already knew uh, that I was able to play the songs. You know what I mean? So he was looking for somebody who could play the songs, but then bring themselves into the equation.
mm,
And so he was. I mean, Maurice was very, very, very free with me. He just gave me, I didn't feel like I was ever told what to do, ever.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, when he told me, when Maurice told me what to do, it was him pushing me into something more creative.
hmm,
Like I'll give you an example. We're at that same rehearsal that you came to. We didn't have an intro yet for the show, the music
hmm.
part of it. So one day I'm just chilling with Maurice. I'm sitting back at the console. I could think they were working on lights or whatever, and I'm sitting with him, and I know that usually we have an intro, musical intro, and I haven't heard anything yet. So I just, out of curiosity, I asked him. I said, "Yo, Reese," I said, I asked him point blank. I said, "Is Bill Myers? You and Bill Myers, are you guys doing the intro? Because Bill usually does it. You know what I mean?" And he looked at me. He said, "No, you're doing it." I was like, "What?" He's like, "No, you're gonna do it." So I ended up writing this, like, just kind of like drum intro thing, where it was a thing. We had 3 or 4 groups, had the band divided in 3 or 4 groups. I taught each part their rhythm, and then they started out individually, but then it came together as one thing at the end for the intro of the band.
Wow.
So that was one situation. And then we were doing, we're about to go out on the road, and I think the new album had just come out that MC Hammer had been featured on.
Hmm.
Same scenario. I'm in rehearsal. We're playing this song that MC Hammer rapped on, and I open my big mouth again. "Hey, yo, Reese, is MC Hammer coming out with us? I mean, who's gonna do the rapping?" He's like, "You're gonna do the rap." So he
Wow.
pushed me into that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pushed me in it. So he put Ralph on the drums, and I did That's for the Love of You. That's that whole rapping, dancing thing that's on YouTube, For the Love of You. And that's how that happened. He just literally made me do that,
Yeah.
you
He
know?
just,
So
yeah.
he just had a way of just pushing me into creativity. I mean, he just never would say, okay, play this like this,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? I mean, he just, so it was always, and that's what I love the most about that situation. I had so much creative freedom and
That's,
such a chance, such an opportunity to flourish and to grow,
yeah.
because whenever he was in the studio, I was always welcome. I'd go sit next to him while he's mixing, and then he signed me to a deal on Kalimba while I was in the band and walked me through the whole production process of putting together an album from start to finish. You
Wow.
know, I was just talking to my wife yesterday about some songs and just how many songs we needed for this album. And I was like, well, Maurice put me through the ringer the first time I did a solo project with him. I think we had written, like I was writing with 2 or 3 guys in town, and we compiled these songs, and I'm going, oh man, we're good. We're ready now. I had 16, 17 songs, right? So I go to the office, and Reese is like, yeah, so what you got? I was like, okay. So I start playing the songs, right? We listen to everything, right? He said, yeah. And he's just, Reese was really kind of just introspective, quiet, We get to like the 16, 17 song, and the song ends, and he goes, okay, I think you got to go back to the drawing board. We need some more music.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's just teaching me that, you gotta, if you want 10 to stand up, you gotta write 25 of them.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yep.
write 30 of them,
Man.
So he's like, no, go back. We're not ready to start cutting yet.
What a great mentor to have, and
Yeah.
that to have there. And I asked that question, Sonny, because knowing what I know about him, and not to say he was any kind of control guy, but I knew he's the guy behind it,
Yeah.
and it just shows you the faith and that, the comfortable, how comfortable he was and just letting you have all that creative freedom
Yeah.
having seen you with the band a number of times. I mean, you got to play so much, you got to
Yeah.
stretch and
Man,
shine.
I
Yeah.
really got a chance to. I mean, it was like, I just was able to just really just be completely me on all fronts, and
Yeah.
to learn, you know what I mean, the learn the craft of songwriting, the craft of recording, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and then do all that and tour the world too. It's just like, man, just thank you, God. That's such a huge
Man.
blessing, man.
And do you think that, I mean, I'm sure before that even had a lot of discipline as a player, but to get the gig with Bette Midler, I got to think I mean, that gig had to require so much like discipline
Yeah.
were you reading a lot of charts? Like, was that a really heavy,
Yeah, we're reading a
intensive?
lot of charts. I mean,
Yeah.
rehearsals. I mean, first of all, I mean, I've had some great bosses, and Bet is definitely one of them, because she's a perfectionist, and
Yeah.
she knows what she wants to hear. Um, Rehearsals with Bet, a typical day in rehearsal with her would be, she'd come in, we'd warm up a little bit, jam around. She comes in the door, it gets silent. It's silent. She pulls up a music stand, all of the charts she wants to hear that day, which is probably about 25 or 30 songs. And she just, and they've already given us a list of the songs, right? So she goes, okay, let's go. And so we start reading these charts, because what she's doing is she's hearing the band, and she's also sorting out songs that she thinks she really wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sight reading and playing these charts all day long in rehearsal for like the first week and a half of rehearsals with her.
Man. That's, yeah.
And so she's listening, I mean, she's stopping, she's going, bass player, play the B section again for me. And she's checking stuff out, and, she's making cats nervous is what she's doing, But I ended
I'll
up, I
bet.
mean, Bette and I ended up being really good friends. I was in her band for like 20 plus years.
Right.
So that process, once I got used to what that process was and the discipline of it, I used to sit back and just laugh at the new guys in the band because I could see how they would they'd be sweating when she come in the room, you know. And I go to myself, okay, who is she gonna like? Who is she gonna jump in today? You know, I said, if she sense any weakness, boy, she was like on it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you telling me you came to visit me at the factory at Zildjian once, and you were in town with Bette, and you were saying how great she was. Like it was a hard gig, but it was just, you know, such a rewarding musically, and just, you know, she was great to work for. And
it was great.
That's all you can ask for. Yeah.
It was, I had to kind of flip the switch. We went to Vegas. I had to flip the switch on that gig and really kind of reel myself back, because, okay, you're in the same place every day for like 2 years and you're playing the same show. It's easy to get bored. Okay, so all of a sudden now you want to play this little lick right here and a little lick over here doesn't belong there. Right. Yeah. So I said, okay, I had to catch myself on that. No. I said, look, the challenge for this gig is I'm going to just challenge myself, see if I can play it the same way every night. And that's the only way I kind of got through it without getting bored and wanting to play this lick over here and this, you know.
Yeah.
So it was good for discipline. Yeah. It was great for discipline, man, you know.
I remember when you were doing that. Do you remember you did I want to say it was around 2009, maybe, or maybe 2010. We did this. We had you fly from Vegas to Colorado for like an in-store. During this like Zildjian Day thing we were doing, and we had a blast. And I want to say that like you flew in that afternoon, then we flew you back, and you like were back for the show that night or something. Yeah. You're like, man, I don't want to leave. We were having a great time. You're like, I got to go to work.
You're right. Had to get back. Had to go put that tux on.
Yeah. Oh man.
Get back to it. You know. I got
to tell a couple of quick funny stories that I think I think people will dig. But by the way, Dave Aberzies of Pearl Jam says, big fan, Sonny Emory. Thank you for these terrific insights. So.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Big fan of yours too, buddy. Cool.
Yeah, man. He's great. Yeah. So I'd met you, you know, when I was at DW or Simmons or something. I didn't really know you yet, but we had met a couple of times. And then my boss, the late great Armin Zildjian, and I saw you, I think, at another PASIC at some point. And he was just like digging you so much. You were playing Sabian at the time, so we didn't go up and talk afterward. But we were sitting next to each other, and he says to me, "So you know him?" And I said, "Well, I know him a little bit. You know, we've met a couple of times." I said, "I don't know him well, but I know him a little bit." And he said, "Why isn't he with us?" So I think not long after that, our friend Dennis Chambers gave me your number, and I called you, and we connected, and you were great and receptive to. I shouldn't be telling people this, you know, but anyway, it's giving away a trade secret. But we connected, we talked, had a good conversation. Yeah. We hung out in LA, and
yeah, man. I mean, you know, Armin was great, man. Really special cat. You know what I mean? It was such an honor for me, first of all, to meet him. You know what I mean? I grew up playing Zildjian cymbals before I was even, you know, when I was a kid. You know, I had my dad would buy me Zildjian, and then when I became a teenager and started gigging, I would go and buy Zildjian cymbals. You know, so to come full circle and to be an endorsee was great for me, man. You know, I love that. And then obviously, you know, one of the biggest honors of my career was when Armin came to the clinic that I did at that shop in Boston, man, outside of Boston. Yeah. And I just got a chance to really, really bond with him and just feel his passion and love for the drums and for what he was doing for the music industry, you know. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. He loved you. He was so happy, you know, and he was such a fan of great drummers, but he really, truly, he recognized how great a drummer you are, Sonny. And you know, he really thrived in those situations. Like when he could sit there and just talk about, Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, Craigie would tell me that too. She like, he really loved you, man. So, we're just so happy that you're part of the family. And I was like, well, this is where I want to be, man.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
haven't looked back. I love the product. I love the family. You guys, you treated me so well and still treating
Wow.
me well. So it's all good.
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking about some of the times we had together traveling too, and I just knowing we were going to be doing this today, and I think you'll remember this on we did a few tours, but on one in particular, we started the tour in San Jose, California, and the Rolling Stones were playing
Oh yeah.
that night. Do you remember that? And it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we went to the store, we set your drums up, did like the sound check,
Mhm.
and then our sales rep, Eddie Kramer, drove us to the venue in San Jose where the Stones were. And I had the late Chooch McGee, who was Charlie's tech for many years. He's no longer with us, but
Mhm.
it's weird too, because I don't even think Chooch had a cell phone, but we showed up and went to the back door, and I said, I'm a friend of Chooch's, and Chooch brought us in.
Yeah, I remember.
And we went to Charlie showed up not long
Yeah,
after in the sound check. I
exactly.
can't, yeah, we took a picture in front of his drums, but not with Charlie. I can't believe we left there and went like, damn, what were you thinking?
Well, it was great
But
for me though, man, because Munch was there, got a chance to
yeah,
see him. I hadn't
that's,
seen him in years. And he and I, like just prior to him getting the gig with us, we auditioned for Janet Jackson together. And and we smashed it. We had so much fun playing together. It didn't care. We didn't care if we didn't get the gig. It was just like we smashed it. Dude, that was great. So it was great. It was great to get a chance to see him and just and to see their sound check was killer for me, man. It was
yeah,
inspirational. You know what I mean? So yeah, I remember that tour. I remember
that
that
was,
day.
and so that this is what I remember too, because Charlie, he loved meeting you and the fact that you were doing a clinic, and he was like, "What's a clinic?" And I
Yeah,
said,
right.
I said, well, Sonny, he's an educator. He's going to like teach people, technique and
Yeah.
things about the drums. And he's like, went like,
Yeah. And
I said,
in my mind, I was like, hey, I'll gladly switch places with you. You can do the clinic. Let me come and do this.
well, do you remember he said to me, he said, are you coming back for the show?
Yeah.
And I said, well, Sonny will probably be done around like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then, and you're going like, yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back. And I said, well, we told the music store owner we'd take him out to dinner.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm going, oh man, I know. And we did, we like you said, we fulfilled our commitment. We honored our commitment. So
we did.
even though we,
And it was
we
great.
could have
And
been,
it was just great to get a chance to hang out with him and meet him and this the
yeah,
sound
yeah,
check, you know what I mean? So
it was
all
fun.
good.
Now, do you remember the next night we went to Seattle, Washington, and we went to see Elvin Jones at Jazz
Yeah.
Alley?
Yes, I
Do you
do.
remember that?
Yep.
We finished the clinic and we were done early enough to catch Elvin's second set.
Yeah.
We go to Jazz and we're at his clinic. And you said to me the next morning as we're flying to the next city, you go, all right, Charlie the first night,
Right.
Elvin last night. What do you get planned tonight,
Yeah,
Johnny
right.
D? Like,
Exactly.
Sonny, I got nothing.
Heaven, dude. I had covered all the bases. I went from Charlie to Elvin. That was cool.
Yeah, I
What's
know, man.
next?
It was like,
Yeah.
it was like the greatest hits clinic tour, you
Yeah,
know?
man. It was killer.
Oh man.
I miss those clinic tours too, man. I really do, man. It's the camaraderie and just, it's just being in a room with a bunch of drummers and doing that and then moving to the next place and doing it again. It's beautiful. You know what I mean?
I know. And that it'd be cool too, because I remember like you would always get a really good, you get like older drummers that knew your, like your history from work you did in the 80s and 90s, and maybe they'd even bring their kids.
Yeah.
So you have like a really good mix of people there, and there's nothing like, that first feeling you remember when you're a kid and you see a drummer playing, you just get, you get that bug, it's
right.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. Because I remember I have a photo that I just looked at yesterday. I was sitting in my mom's lap at my dad's gig, and I was fixated on the drummer. And my mom told me from that night forward, I was completely hooked on the drums, man.
Wow.
And I remember that night. I think I may have been like maybe 5 or 6 years old.
I was going to ask you. Okay.
Yeah.
And did you start playing pretty like around that time?
I actually started playing when I was 4. Because my dad my dad shoved a saxophone in my mouth, and I was like, nah. But he had a set of bongos at the house, and I just gravitated to the bongos. And my dad, being an educator and a professional musician, he was like, oh, I got it. I see what's going on here. He went and got, you remember the company Zimgar, Japanese company?
Oh, yeah,
Zimgar?
sure. Yeah.
They used
Yeah.
to make a little miniature kit. So I had a little miniature, my dad bought me a miniature pearl blue kit, one tom up, floor tom, kick and snare, and that was it.
That
And
was
I
it,
was hooked.
man.
Yeah, yeah,
That's great. And
yeah.
and so I didn't realize he was an educator. So he had the good foresight to make sure that you like learned to read and that
Oh
you
yeah, yeah. I
you
started reading. I mean, right away. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
Dad was an educator. He was a band director in the Atlanta public school system for like 40 plus years.
Wow.
So, but he also was a, jazz musician and had his own group.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as soon as I was able to like really start playing, I was playing with him from day one, with he and my grandfather in the basement, because my grandfather played piano. Dad played sax, and I would be on drums. And my grandfather was just a blues boogie woogie, just, killer.
Yeah.
So, they're teaching me how to shuffle and all that stuff. And then Dad, being the educator, he was like, okay, sit down. We're going to start learning how to read right now. So he taught me how to read. And then he was teaching private lessons every week. My dad had, at one point, I think he would have like maybe 40, 50 students every Saturday. He would be
Wow.
teaching from like 8 in the morning, man, to like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And when I turned maybe like 11 or 12, he was like, okay, I want you to start come and sit in on some of these lessons. And I picked up the trumpet for a minute, start reading and playing trumpet, and just kind of really immersing myself in the reading, the legit
Yeah.
part of it. So by the time I got to high school and college, I was already reading.
What a difference it makes too.
Oh
And
yeah,
what a difference, yeah, and the fact that you had that as a young player, the wherewithal or even the facility to play with other musicians, which
yeah,
nowadays, again, I know I sound like the old man, get off my lawn, but so many like young players don't have that opportunity to
yeah,
play with other players. It's
yeah.
like they can shed and develop great technique playing on their own, but man, it's right. I mean, there's nothing like playing with other players
I
and
think that's
feeding
the
off.
Achilles heel of the industry right now. I mean, we're seeing the result of guys who have done a lot of work on YouTube or technically or whatever they do by themselves, but then you can't, and you put them into a group situation and they haven't learned how to make music yet.
Yeah.
It's like, I love facility just like the next guy. I love burning out and soloing and playing fast and just doing the stuff that we like to do as drummers. But I also like seeing 20,000 people bob their heads because we got this pocket rocking. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yep.
then just kind of to digress, Michael White is one of the masters of that. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And we
Yep.
talk about that all the time. And that's something that, like the younger guys need to learn. A lot of them need to learn the discipline of just playing the pocket and what that does for the music. And that's the one thing that bonded Gadd and I, is that we both came out of that school. I mean, it's like when I listen to him, I know he has chops, but the thing that I love the most about him is how that music feels when he's playing it, the
Yeah.
feel of it, and he's not always playing a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yep. His restraint. And exactly, Sonny, to your point, you don't get the gig with Earth, Wind and Fire if you can't, you can have all the chops in the world, but if you can't make it feel great,
yeah, 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 yeah.
then yeah, they're gonna call you on that. They're gonna go, man.
Oh yeah, they're gonna call you.
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you, when I was 17 years old, I got the call to go out and to play with Cameo, Larry Blackmon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now, that gig, I tell my students, I wish all of you guys could experience the school of Larry Blackmon. That's straight pocket.
Yeah.
He don't want to hear nothing that's not on the record. Straight pocket. you
Yeah,
know. And
that's
so that's a total that's a different lane. That's another discipline that when you have that, when you have that in your tool belt and you have the chops, then you can make music, and then the chops mean something,
yeah,
you
yep.
know.
That's great advice.
Yeah, the
Yep.
chops mean something. I mean, you know, and I want to shout out Dennis. I've been in constant contact. I've been talking to him a lot over the past years. Uh, but that's one thing that we talk about all the time. And that's one thing I love about him too, is like, you know, Dennis is a monster, man. Can play anything he wants to play, anything he wants to hear, he can play it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But the thing that sets him aside is all those chops, he's got them going inside of a groove, inside of that pocket.
Yep.
And you never lose this. You never
Exactly.
lose that
Yeah.
groove, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
And that's always the foundation of where he's coming from is
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I know. I know.
So not
You're
being
right.
able to play with guys, not being able to get out and play with bass, you know, your rhythm section, and learning how to make a groove walk is what I call it. Is I mean, that's a lost art form to me. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think we need to get back to. You know, is really trying to play as much as you can with other players.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
I agree. I know. I started to see that more and more. Like, YouTube and DVDs and all the stuff that has a lot, all these great tools that have made drummers at home become better drummers and improve
Right.
their technique. But you hit the nail on the head, Sonny. What's missing is like the musicality of like interacting with other players and like
Right.
you and the bass player doing something and you hearing something he's doing and going, yeah, man, okay, I'm gonna go this way with it
Yeah.
and all that stuff that happens in the moment of playing music that,
Exactly. I get my
yeah,
students to a certain point. I get them to a certain point technically, and then I flip the script on them. I said, okay, now we're going to learn how to be a musician.
yeah, yep,
You need to be a musician who plays drums, not a drummer.
that's great. That's great. Good for
You know what I
you.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about I know you're working, you've got a new project you mentioned earlier that you're working on right now. And
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Sam Sims and I, once again, we've joined forces. And it's funny because it's the drummer from Earth, Wind and Fire, the bassist from Michael Jackson have put together a band. The name of the group is The Seventh Time.
All right.
And my kids are involved. It's a funk rock kind of thing, high energy funk rock band. So look for it. We're gonna be dropping something this spring, and
Great.
probably actually going out doing some dates in the summer. You know,
Fantastic.
so
And
look
and you're
for that.
and I was going to say, and you're playing other instruments on the record, right?
Oh
You're
yeah, been playing a lot of keyboards lately. Been doing a lot of writing, playing a lot of boards. I'm playing most of the keyboards on the album thus
great.
far. Um, Nicholas, my son, played a little bit, but I've done most of it, and doing most of the well, all of the drums, obviously, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
and then some programming, you know.
Are you singing too?
Yeah,
Are there
yeah,
vocals? Yep.
I'm singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm singing. Nicholas is singing. Sam is singing. Yeah, so I'm just kind of just
Great.
exercising some different muscles, you know. Mhm.
Well, Sonny, when the record comes out, let's do another one of these and we'll do something really focused on that,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
would be great.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love to.
I knew a lot of people would want to watch, but this has been amazing. And I'll as we get close to kind of wrapping it, I'm going to just see if there's any questions I might have missed. I'm sure there are, but and anything, Sonny, you want to say just to sort of in closing here?
Well, I mean, the only thing I want to say is that, you know, I want to charge not just younger cats, but the guys who have been doing this for a long time to continue to hold up the banner, man, of excellence. Just continue to hold up the banner of excellence, even though it feels like we're fighting an uphill battle as far as clubs are closing left and right. We seem to be losing a lot of giants, but that's all as it should be. God has a purpose for everything. If you're able to play and to bring people joy through music, then do that, and do that to the best of your ability. Continue to learn and continue to strive, and let's just continue to make great music.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's great. What else is there really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sonny. Man, it's
thank you,
been
buddy.
so great to connect, catch up. Don't go away. We'll say goodbye in the room, but I want to thank everybody for watching, and a big hand for Sonny Emory. And I apologize if I didn't get to all the questions, but thank you all for watching today. This was really a treat for me, and
thanks for watching, guys, ladies.
All right. All right. We'll see you all soon. Well, that's my show for today, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Live from My Drum Room. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to the podcast, and we'll see you soon.